Hello, it's me, Reed.
Hi there, I'm Jennifer.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome to another Faith at Home listening practice.
That's right. We're doing Psalm 78, continuing Psalm 78. So we've already started. This is a very long psalm, 78 verses or something like that?
72.
Oh, 72.
72 verses.
72. So we're going to do 17 to 31.
Yes.
Today.
And so if it seems like we're picking up in the middle of a story, it's because we are picking up in the middle of a story.
But that also points out something that's interesting about this kind of prayer practice is it doesn't have to be, like you can choose parts. We do about roughly 20 verses or something like that, but you could do less. You could do more on your own. It's all right. But so you just do it how it works. We don't want to do much more than 10 minutes or so, roughly. So that's what we're doing right now. But you can go longer or shorter as you see fit.
As works for you.
Mm-hmm.
We have our notebook here and a pen. You might also want something to write with and write on. And I wonder, would you start us off today?
Sure, I'll read first. And while you're listening to me read, you can think about what comes to your mind as I'm reading this. There's words or phrases that pop out to you, or maybe something else that these verses make you think of. That's also something. We just say that's God speaking to you. Listen to what you hear. So, Psalm 78 in the N-E-T version. Psalm 78, 17 to 31. Yet they continued to sin against God and rebelled against the Most High in the desert. They willfully challenged God by asking for food to satisfy their appetite. They insulted God, saying, "Is God really able to give us food in the wilderness?" Yes, God struck a rock and water flowed out, streams gushed forth. But can God also give us food? Will God provide meat for the people? When the Lord heard this, God was furious. A fire broke out against Jacob, and God's anger flared up against Israel, because they did not have faith in God, and did not trust God's ability to deliver them. God gave a command to the clouds above, and opened the doors in the sky. God rained down manna for them to eat. God gave them the grain of heaven. People ate the food of the mighty ones. God sent them more than enough to eat. God brought the east wind through the sky, and by God's strength led forth the south wind. God rained down meat on them like dust, birds as numerous as the sand on the seashores. God caused them to fall right in the middle of their camp, all around their homes. They ate until they were beyond full. God gave them what they desired. They were not yet filled up. Their food was still in their mouths when the anger of God flared up against them. God killed some of the strongest of them and brought the young men of Israel to their knees.
So what I notice as I listen to this psalm today, there's that phrase in there about the people did not have faith. They didn't trust that God could provide for them. So that just causes me to wonder, am I in a situation today where I am living with faith, belief, relationship that says, I trust God that you will provide for me, for us, for our family, for our world? Is there a safe resting place? Is there provision for us? And do I trust that today? What do you notice as you listen?
I just was struck by the phrase that the people ate the food of the mighty ones. This was like the food of heaven. That's how it was perceived, that there was no food, it was just desert everywhere, and all of a sudden there was this food that they perceived or thought was like the food of angels, maybe. They didn't know what it was, and it was good. That just struck me that God made something almost from nothing, seemingly. Like, they whinged about God. Okay, sure, I got water, I'm not thirsty anymore, but now I'm hungry. Come on, give me something. And God produces something out of practically nothing, seemingly. And that was interesting, that God is able to provide for these people, even though God wasn't pleased about having demands placed on him, I guess. But God did provide, even in the midst of his irritation. Plainly, God's irritated, but okay, all right, here you go, and gives them things they need. That was what struck me. There's just this idea that God made food for them, provided for them, out of nothing, seemingly.
Yeah. I wonder what you notice as you listen. We're going to read again.
Please do.
And this time, let's listen together for an invitation. A way that we are called towards something, a next loving step forward. Yet they continued to sin against God and rebelled against the Most High in the desert. They willfully challenged God by asking for food to satisfy their appetite. They insulted God by saying, "Is God really able to give us food in the wilderness?" Yes, God struck a rock and water flowed out, streams gushed forth. But can God also give us food? Will God provide meat for God's people? When the Lord heard this, God was furious, and a fire broke out against Jacob, and God's anger flared up against Israel, because they did not have faith in God and did not trust God's ability to deliver them. God gave a command to the clouds above and opened the doors in the sky. God rained down manna for them to eat. God gave them the grain of heaven. People ate the food of the mighty ones. God sent them more than enough to eat. God brought the east wind through the sky, and by God's strength led forth the south wind. God rained down meat on them like dust, birds as numerous as the sand on the seashores. God caused them to fall right in the middle of their camp, all around their homes. And they ate until they were beyond full. God gave them what they desired. They were not yet filled up. Their food was still in their mouths when the anger of God flared up against them. God killed some of the strongest of them. God brought the young men of Israel to their knees.
That's not a happy story. But the invitation, strangely enough, is like I heard ask for what you need, want. It may not be what God is wanting from me. And maybe that's part of it too. It's like, oh, you should ask for what you want, but I should also be open to God's grace. I don't know, that sounds sort of strange to say it that way. But that's what I heard. I said, please ask for what you need. And maybe that was it, right? They weren't asking for what they need. They were just, demanding, I want meat. Sure, this bread's okay, but let's have some meat now. Maybe that's what it was, haughtiness and whatnot. I don't know. But that's what I heard. Listen and ask. Be prepared to ask God for what you need.
So the invitation I hear grows from knowing this story, this pattern, and how the people had to go out into the wilderness each day and gather up the food. I mean, yes, the birds flew through, but they also had to go and gather up the manna each day, and they had to figure out a way to cook it, and some boiled it, and some baked it, and some baked it, and some boiled it, and they had to do the same thing every day. And there was nourishment and provision for them. So the invitation for me is to reach out and accept God's provision for this day. First, for my spiritual well-being, but also for our physical and emotional and psychological and financial well-being. All of those things are there and need to be gathered up, need to be collected. So I hear, Jennifer, collect up my provision for today. So.
All right. That's good.
I wonder what you hear.
Yeah. What good thing did you hear? Or confusing, maybe even. That's okay. Sometimes I don't know what to make of it.
Sometimes the these readings and listening practices don't come with a clear cut, oh, here's an obvious thing.
No, that's a benefit of having a contact and community and talking with people. So you can hear, other people can mirror and hear what you said and talk and speak, and it's a process.
Well, and in the conversation, there are things that are drawn to our attention that maybe we wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
True.
And in that, I say, thank you, Life-Giving Spirit, because that's the energy and the connection that comes from listening together. So, Thank you for being with us today.
And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
I hope so. Bye-bye.